Welcome to Hotline TV, everybody. I'm John Mercurio.
And I'm Amy Walters. So, John.
Yes.
I guess it's no more Mr. Nice Guy Obama.
Okay.
This week, the trouble is mounting around every corner for his stimulus package, so the White House decided to bring back a version of the president we haven't seen in a while, a man trained in the ancient arts of deadly political warfare, a man we like to call Ninja Obama. All right, let's talk about some of Ninja's moves over the past few days when trying to push through this stimulus package of his.
Well, it looks as though, according to roll call just a few minutes ago, Harry Reid, the Senate Majority Leader, believes that they have the votes to pass, they have the 60 votes they need to pass the stimulus package. They were able to corral enough Republicans. There are a few reluctant Democrats who may vote against it, Ben Nelson and that guy Dorgan up in North Dakota. Or I'm sorry, Kent Conrad. I always get them mixed up.
Me too.
They might vote against it, but anyway, they have the votes. It looks as though this more aggressive approach that we've seen from the president could be yielding results. I mean, you had an op-ed in the Washington Post this morning, which frankly, by sort of historical standards, was not particularly aggressive or partisan. I mean, he said that the opponents, sort of rely on bad habits. But I think that you're right. We've seen over the past month or so that this is a president who was seeking bipartisanship, and it looks as though that didn't yield the results he needed. So
right, so he goes take another tack, which I don't disagree. It wasn't that long ago. It was probably 3 weeks ago. There was talk about an 80-vote Senate.
Not going to happen.
Right. Well, no, that it was. Right, we were thinking, oh my gosh, he's going to get 80 votes in the Senate. This thing's going to pass overwhelmingly in the House, and then sort of got chipped away at every moment. But the reality is, and I think that both sides are making their case pretty strongly, is that you either believe, as Barack Obama does, that this is the way to get the economy started is not by more tax cuts, it's not by going around the edges. This was talking about in the op-ed, or you're a Republican that you believe fundamentally that taxes and just simply infrastructure spending, period, is the answer. So I don't know that these two were ever going to be able to meet, even if you chop out $100 billion here and $100 billion there. This, as soon as it was clear what his agenda was, I don't know how you ever were going to get more than a handful of Republicans to buy into that.
You were going to cut some of the spending, and you were going to add, and you were going to add a few of the tax cuts. But the problem is that the spending proportion of this package in the Senate has actually increased.
I know.
By more than $50 billion, since it passed out of by more than $80 billion actually since it passed out of the House. So the idea that the Senate was supposed to be sort of the cooling saucer for the hot rhetoric coming out of the House, in this example, I think is a little bit flawed.
Well, indeed.
What do you think of the interviews he gave, the 5 television interviews he gave, not specifically related to the economic stimulus package, but about they were dominated by Daschle.
By Daschle, and that was the point, which was instead of being able to spend those 5 interviews making his case, he had to talk about Tom Daschle, so lost that news cycle.
Exactly.
But I agree with you. I think where Republicans did a very good job is by turning this into a pork package, and there were easy targets, right?
Well, there always
contraceptive, and anytime you do that. So the question is, this says a lot, I think, about, number one, Obama's willingness to let Democrats in the House and the Senate load this thing up in the first place. That there was nobody, was somebody at the White House sitting down at the table saying, contraceptive, no.
Right.
This, no. This, no. Take all that easy stuff out, and I don't know where they were.
But I think at the end of this process, unfortunately, it's sort of a baptism by fire. There are all these new administration officials working up. They've worked in Washington for a long time, but working up on the Hill as a White House representative. There are going to be a lot of bruised relationships. You already hear Obama administration people telling NBC News that it's the House Democrats' fault that the bill was so flawed coming out of the House, and putting everything on Pelosi and Hoyer.
And Obie.
And Obie, and exactly, Obie. And a lot of relationships, I think, are going to need a little bit of time. Some bruises.
And as you and I have discussed, and as we learned yesterday in our sit-down with NRCC Chairman Pete Sessions, Republicans do not feel that there is a political price they have to pay for voting against this.
Right.
There are very few of them who sit in marginal districts. They are talking to Republicans, and so they do not feel the need, even though they don't want to look like they're attacking a popular president, they do not feel the need to go along basically with his model, which to them feels like it is too pork laden and not enough taxes. So if there's not a political price to pay, how are you going to get anybody on your side? The other question is, where's, what's Rahm doing in all of this? Has he been able to
work with the Senate?
Work with the
Right.
Senate and the House Democrats? We
Right.
learned a lot about how he had talked with moderate Republicans. He was helpful in getting Greg into the cabinet.
But did he ever have a good relationship with those blue dogs, the 11 Democrats who voted against the House package? Probably not. But anyway, that is all the time that we have for today's show. Great show. I'm John Mercurio.
And I'm Amy Walter. We'll see you the next time on Hotline TV.